up and make something good. There goes the neighborhood. I get a feeling inside me, something that nobody else can see. Can't get away from the mess of my heart in my head. Maybe I'll see you on Saturday. Still when I wake up and everything's new. There goes the neighborhood.
So good.
Oh my God. Big Tomo energy. Big Tomo energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything about it was good, man. I mean, I've been to Vito's a few times, and I've never had seen it look that way exactly, because I feel like it's always more jazzy. But man, it was really nice to just be there with him and to feel all of it. Go Tomo.
Yeah. Oh, that was really lovely.
And the message of the song, I mean, the idea of, the neighborhood going is really, it'd be going. It'd be going. But at the same time, it's really nice to hear how joyous and it seems like there's something to look forward to tomorrow despite the changes.
That's it. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. It actually makes me excited for the future.
Oh, I'm glad. And then speaking of the future, we're trying to plan one. I'm Eula Scott Bino.
I'm Jeannie Yandel, and we are the co-hosts of the podcast, Battle Tactics for Your Sexist Workplace.
Pew, pew, pew. That's true. We're trying to create a less sexist environment for our futures.
Yes.
Along with a bunch of other battles that we're fighting, and, more to come.
Yes, indeed.
Along with tonight's.
Yes. So we also have kind of a low stakes battle for you, otherwise known as bingo. So if you don't have a bingo card yet for tonight's festivities, you can go play along at ACLU-WA.org/bingo. Yeah.
/bingo.
Yeah. But if you've got your bingo card, should we channel a church basement and just pick up your bingo card, shake it, get your markers, shake them. Yes.
I just have a book, but I'll take it. And it's really high. And you want everybody to know. And then you got all your pens because you really want folks to know, I'm here for the bingo tonight.
That's it. That's it.
Because, low stakes wins are good.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Still
good.
a win.
We also want to really acknowledge the land that we're on and speak in gratitude to the fact that we have somewhere to set our feet on this foundation. And we are more than honored to introduce a really beautiful video that was created for you all to experience our blessings full-heartedly.
Robert de Los Angeles, Tedista, Dualjet, Snoqualmie. My name is Robert de Los Angeles. I am a Snoqualmie tribal elder and the chairman of the Snoqualmie Indian Tribe. We welcome you to our ancestral homelands.
Oki, Niabskapi Pakanini Danigo Shishkanapi. My name is Bree Blackhorse. My Indian name is Prized Woman, and I am an enrolled citizen of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma. I am an ACLU Washington cooperating attorney and chair of the ACLU Washington Legal Committee. I work as an associate at the law firm of Kilpatrick Townsend, where I am honored to represent the Snoqualmie Tribe.
As a practice, the Snoqualmie Indian Tribe offers land acknowledgement language for people to use accordingly to the lands they are on. Each place has unique connections to the first people of these lands. The language, we acknowledge that we are on indigenous land of the Coast Salish peoples. We have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Snoqualmie Indian Tribe, the Snoqualmie. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. Acknowledging our lands and our unbroken connections to them is a teaching passed down from our ancestors. These lands remember us, every generation of our Snoqualmie people. Today, we are at our sacred site of creation, the Snoqualmie Falls. As the Snoqualmie people, it has been our sacred duty to protect and advocate for our sacred places in our ancestral lands. The Snoqualmie Indian Tribe has carried this duty since time immemorial. In the 1980s, our elders and Snoqualmie leaders prayed and made the decision to become public to advocate for a sacred place of our creation, Snoqualmie Falls. The falls faced desecration once again, and we signed on as interveners in the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission of Project 2493 to stop the relicensing of the hydroelectric facility re-permitting. This project allowed blasting and renovations of the plant that divert our waters before they're able to complete the sacred cycle of traveling over the falls into the plunge pool below and transforming into mist that join our worlds and our ancestors. Today, our sacred Snoqualmie Falls still faces further desecration and impacts from irresponsible development. We will always advocate and speak out against harmful impacts in and around Snoqualmie Falls. Our sacred site, Snoqualmie Falls, is for all people, for all times. Let the spirit flow.
Thank you, Chairman de Los Angeles, for sharing with all of us the sacred history and significance of the Snoqualmie Falls to the Snoqualmie people. As the chairman mentioned, the tribe has spent decades attempting to protect and preserve its most sacred site. Most recently in 2019, the tribe acquired some of the land surrounding the falls in an effort to protect and preserve this sacred site, the land upon which Snoqualmie members practice their traditional ways, and to protect the ancient burial ground site. But the tribe's fight to preserve and protect this sacred site is not yet over. Although the tribe has had success in its efforts to protect and preserve this sacred site, the falls remains under threat by commercial exploitation. This commercial exploitation includes aviation tourism that disturbs the falls and the sacred mist that rises from that plunge pool, as well as from the hydroelectric facility that sits atop the falls, run by PSE, that at times reduces the flow of water into the plunge pool to a mere trickle, which prevents the sacred mist from rising and taking the spirits and prayers of the Snoqualmie people to Creator and their ancestors. We'd like to thank ACLU Washington for its commitment to defending and advancing the rights of Indigenous peoples throughout our state, and for taking the time as part of its annual celebration to acknowledge that no matter where we are in Washington state, we stand on tribal land, and that standing on tribal land means you have a responsibility to protect and honor the sacred sites of the first peoples of this land. So we hope that when you visit the falls in the future, you will not just see this site as a beautiful feature of our natural landscape, but will instead see it as a sacred site holy to the Snoqualmie people that has served as a cornerstone of the Snoqualmie people's cultural and spiritual practices since time immemorial. Thank you and enjoy the celebration.
I'm Zara Stevens. I'm an organizer with the ACLU of Washington, and I am also a biracial woman of both white and Indigenous heritage. This year's theme, belonging, is deeply personal for me as I continue the lifelong process of simultaneously deconstructing my own whiteness and reclaiming my indigeneity. I am equal parts both. I am white of Norwegian and British heritage, and I am Indigenous. I'm enrolled Grovant and descended Miniconjou and Youngtanai Sioux. I would like to offer a beautiful land acknowledgement written by a few staff members at the Peace and Justice Action League of Spokane, and thank you, Pijals, for sharing this with us. We want to begin by respectfully acknowledging that while we are gathering virtually, we are all somewhere, and where we are is unceded Indigenous land. I am on the occupied traditional lands of the interior Salish nations, including what are now known by their government names as the Spokane, the Coeur d'Alene, the Flathead, and the Colville nations. These brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, grandfathers and grandmothers have stewarded this land throughout generations. We lovingly acknowledge the ancestors of these proud nations, and we do this to offer recognition, respect, and gratitude for their resilience. We commit to intentionally addressing the outcomes of the doctrine of discovery and the myth of manifest destiny, proclaiming the truth about the highly developed civilizations that existed prior to white arrival, and honoring the human beings who were already here and who remain and who continue to resist the impacts of ongoing colonization, and who fight to this day to sustain their culture and people against the onslaught of both political and cultural erasure. We know it is insufficient to simply acknowledge the land we occupy. We commit to centering the voices, leadership, and solutions of Indigenous peoples in our communities and around the world. We stand in solidarity with Indigenous people who are leading the fight to decolonize modern realities and who fight to protect our planet's balance and biodiversity across the globe. We encourage you to support Indigenous-led organizations here in Spokane County, such as the Salish School and the Native Project, and to buy Native everywhere, and to integrate the essential voices of Indigenous people in our lives all year long.
Haku, Tikali, Lahupwa Shershets, Samsonit Crystal, Wuya. Hi, I'm Crystal Pardew and I'm Chumash, and my people are coming from the original inhabitants of the southern coast of California. Thank you for joining us in this celebration. It's an exciting time for Indigenous justice at the ACLU. Indigenous justice began back at the ACLU in the 1970s when a small group of staff started to have conversations about the intersection of civil liberties and tribal sovereignty. But there's been a new surge back to Indigenous justice that began in 2019. A small group of staff across the country formed the Indigenous Justice Working Group, and for the last 2 years, we organized and rallied around Indigenous justice issues and increased awareness both inside and outside the ACLU. A lot of this work was made possible through the support and leadership of our own Executive Director, Michelle Storms. As an Indigenous person, I'm so excited to see ACLU and ACLU Washington stepping up in these spaces. And I'm particularly excited about our work in education equity and around the over-policing and incarceration of Native people. The ACLU is a powerhouse, and we have the resources to be able to dedicate to these issues, and I'm so inspired by the fact that we are.
I'm so glad we got to see that, Eula.
No, for real. That was really beautiful, Jeannie.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
Yeah.
I teared up quite a bit, actually. I'm, grateful that I get to get ready for takes.
I wanted to just call back to a couple of things that I heard in the video that really stuck with me that I am thinking about as someone who is occupying Indigenous land. One is standing on sacred land means you have a responsibility. There's never not a moment that you don't have a responsibility for this land. And then also, we know it's insufficient to merely acknowledge the land we occupy. I feel like that's actually really important. I feel like I'm in a lot of kind of white dominant spaces where we talk about doing land acknowledgements as though that's enough.
Right.
And it's important to know that that's not. It's something, but it's not everything.
Right. Mainly because these people are still here and still in need to keep up with the rest of society. And it's as hard for them, if not harder, than for the people it's hard for. Right? Like, they're not white men. They're not white women. They're out here doing their best on a daily basis, having not even left their own backyards. And hearing that story about the Snoqualmie Falls, I got really choked up because I have really great photos of my family there, my husband and with me. And my husband passed away this last year. So it's just a trip to be able to have that memory and then to hear the story about their ancestors not being able to hear their, requests and grant them blessings because of the water being slowed down by PSE. It just really took me out. It, my Aries moon got real fired up about it. What I always want people to really take away from stuff like that too is that these people have a past, but they also really do have a future, and our participation in that is possible. And luckily, we're already here, and the ACLU is a place that can guide us to better support them.
And there's even more coming up that will get your Aries moon fired up, that will probably get us all fired up and really thinking about what belonging means.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited to be able to introduce our next segment, y'all. It's going to be Michelle Storms. Michelle Storms has been the executive director of the ACLU of Washington since 2019. She's a recognized leader in racial justice and civil rights advocacy. A fierce advocate for civil rights and civil liberties in Washington, she has a history of building successful programs in services of civil rights, civil liberties, and civil legal aid.
And John A. Powell is the director of the Othering and Belonging Institute. This is a UC Berkeley research institute that brings together scholars, organizers, communicators, and policymakers to identify and eliminate the barriers to an inclusive, just, and sustainable society, and to create transformative change towards a more equitable nation. He's also a professor of law, African American studies, and ethnic studies at UC Berkeley, and he's written several books. His latest book is called Racing to Justice, Transforming Our Concepts of Self and Other to Build an Inclusive Society.
Hello, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be in Berkeley, California, to share a conversation with John Powell, a scholar, lawyer, activist, and friend in the conversation about belonging, the ACLU, and what all of us can do to make our world a more just and equitable place. Okay, so let's get right into it. Our event theme is belonging, and you also lead an institute called the Othering and Belonging Institute. So I'd love if you could just start us off talking about what it is you mean by this concept of belonging.
Well, that's a great question. And we changed our name about 3 years ago. And as we were changing our name, some people thought we should be called the Belonging Institute. We surveyed many of the people who use our services, and they said no. They said the thing that's actually sharpening this discussion is what's happening to us every day. And so what is that? We're being othered. We're being told we don't belong. We're being told we're not fully human. We're being told we love wrong, we're immigrants, we're too brown, we're, this America, when they say we the people, they weren't talking about us, we're not Christian enough. That's our daily experience. The othering, the sense of not belonging. And belonging then becomes the aspiration. So we decided that it was the Othering and Belonging Institute. The othering is the problem that's happening throughout the United States and much of the world. And the solution, we always say, is not saming. We're not saying everybody's the same, or in order to be part of the group, you have to be the same. We're saying it's belonging. And belonging is recognizing people's full humanity, unconditional, not provisional, not temporary. We recognize everyone is of value.
I love that. And I wonder, I mean, you mentioned that you've changed the name of the Institute, and I also know that you've been doing this work related to racism and inequities for many years. So I wonder what it is that has brought you to the point of really understanding this idea of belonging. Is it your life, your career? What is it that has brought you to this point?
Well, it's interesting. As I sort of look back and try to figure out how I got here, I realize I'm telling stories to myself. And I don't fully believe those stories. Not that they're not false, but there are many different ways when you can cut it up and dice it. I come from a large family. I'm 6 of 9. My family is from the South. My parents are sharecroppers. And their life was one of not belonging. They're not being able to vote when they were young, not being able to live in certain communities when they moved to Detroit, not being able to go to the hospital when my father experienced all the body being singed off of him in a fire, not being able to go to college prep courses in schools. So my whole, when I think the trajectory of my life, and not just my life, but many Black people, many Native American people, many people in this country, it strikes me that all these people are struggling to belong, to be recognized. And early on, it took on the issue of race. But race is just one expression, important expression, a foundational expression for America. Race is actually one of the master categories in America, but it's not the only category. And so as I started traveling around the world, I lived in India, my daughter was born in Tanzania, I saw different expressions of that. And it just occurred to me that this problem of being othered and needing to belong was really universal. And while we need to sort of sink in the particulars, whether it's race or gender or combination of it, what we call intersectionality, that really we need to understand the mechanism of othering. And we need to grab on to belonging where there is no othering. Can we belong without saying someone else don't belong? That's the goal. And some people say it's not possible. Maybe not. But Nelson Mandela said many things seem impossible until we do them.
So in your most recent book, Racing to Justice, one of the things that you talked about early on in the book is the harm of being race neutral. So let's focus on the race piece of belonging just for a moment. And you said that universal approaches to trying to address equality aren't really effective. And I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so one way of thinking about it is, let's say you're in a river and the river has a current to it, and you're just relaxing in the river. Where are you going? You're going wherever the current's going. And I would say that there are so many practices of othering, racial and otherwise, that if you just relax, don't challenge it, don't investigate it, you will actually end up being complicit. Again, the Reverend Dr. King said, I'm not worried about the segregationists, the racists. I'm worried about the good white people who just relax, if you will. So if we're going to go against the stream, if we're going to go against the current, it requires engagement, not being neutral. A structure and system is not neutral. If you're going to challenge that, it's not neutral. Now, think about it. We have what some people call the Second Constitution, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Some people are confused and say, well, we're supposed to be neutral. 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment were not neutral. They were designed to reorder the country. They were designed to say, Black people are full people recognized under the Constitution. They were designed to say slavery is wrong and not allowed except in a narrow band that turned out to be too big in terms of if you're convicted of a crime. So our Constitution is predicated on certain values. And if we don't live those values, if we're neutral to those values are eroded. We have to embrace them. We talk about every generation has to recommit its, re-engage its commitment to liberty. I would say to equality. The second verse, second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence says something very radical. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Self-evident, what does that mean? It doesn't have to be proved. It's given. We don't need science, we don't have debate. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all, now correction, all men, okay, let's correct that, all people are created equal. all people are created equal. That's a radical value, especially when you think about we lived in a world where we had kings and queens and slaves, right? Now here's what Gunther Meredith talked about, the American dilemma. And what he's talking about, the dilemma is this: we're a country founded upon the concept that all people are created equal. And at the same time, the person who penned that in the Declaration of Independence was Thomas Jefferson, who had 200 slaves. That's a dilemma. How do you hold both of those things? How do you hold people in abject slavery? How do you enslave people based on race and at the same time say that all people are created equal? That's a dilemma. And that's the dilemma the United States has been fighting with since its inception. That dilemma is not going to go away if we're neutral. That dilemma is a problem. And in some ways, we are still fighting that right now. Some people are saying the country only belonged to Christian, white, conservatives, men, straight. Well, that's not what the Declaration of Independence said. But that was our practice. So the question is, can we reach to that aspiration? And that's what, in the Gettysburg Address, Lincoln called for. He called for a new birth of freedom. He was critical of the Constitution, not the Declaration of Independence, because he said, he implied that the Constitution was a slave document. And he was criticized for that. He knew what he was saying. So he asked for a new birth of freedom. Can we commit to something where we address that dilemma? And we need to do that today.
I appreciate the dilemma that you talk about. And one of the things that it makes me think about that was true then and now is that for the founders to write into the document, all men are created equal and also be slaveholders, to me suggests that those people who were enslaved were not considered people to them, right? And so I wonder about the idea of how we're able to other people might be related to not seeing the humanity of other people.
Well, that's exactly right. In fact, now we have the advantage of neuroscience, and we can see what's happening in the brain. We know that we are wired to recognize another human being. You don't necessarily like them, you're not going to take them home with you. But when we see another human being, nature thought it would be cool, we just recognize that's another human being. So there's a part of the brain that lights up. When someone's deeply othered, that part of the brain does not light up. And in fact, the part that does light up is disgust. So yes, this literally, not just figuratively, literally, when we deeply other people, we stop seeing them as human.
I feel like that means that we have a couple of projects to do, right? And you can't overcome neuroscience in the brain overnight. But we can hope that people can learn to be more accepting of others, people who they deem to be other. But then also we have the law as a tool to try to rectify some things, right? So the ACLU, as you well know, has been protecting and advancing the civil liberties and civil rights of people in this country for more than 100 years. In fact, at one time, you were even the legal director at the ACLU. So now over 100 years, our work has evolved. And I wonder if you have an articulation of the work of the ACLU related to this concept of belongingness and what it is that we need to do with the tools that we have, right, and the mission that we have to address this question of othering and belonging.
I think that's really a profoundly important question. First of all, meanings change. You know, the Supreme Court has acknowledged, for example, what equality means, what liberty means. So when Roger Baldwin started the ACLU over 100 years ago, it was a different country, different problems. Free speech was just coming into its own. We weren't thinking about equality in the country. Justice Black in the 1930s made the observation that the 14th Amendment had been used almost entirely for corporations and not to enhance the lives of the formerly enslaved Black people. And so we sort of grew up, the ACLU sort of grew up around the time when the country had a different set of problems. And of course, by some accounts, the country was more than 90% white. We're now going to a place where the country is much more diverse, racially, religiously, nationally, And that's going to continue. And in some ways, I would say the ACLU at its soul was always about how do you make a country where people belong? And so it makes sense that speech was so critical. It still is critical. But speech was actually something different than how we think of free speech today. For example, commercial speech was not protected speech. We didn't think of speech in terms of corporations. Corporations didn't have free speech in the sense that we think about it today. And so the country has changed, the laws changed. And what the ACLU used to say when I was there, and I think they still say, is that the first client of the ACLU is the Constitution. What do they mean by that? From my perspective, what they mean is that there's a structure, there's a container, which is important and needs to be used in order to enhance everyone. It's the container which we all belong in. And so in that sense, I would say belonging has always been there, just it wasn't articulated. And so we have different groups now saying, I belong, whether I'm trans, whether I'm straight, whether I'm gay, whether I'm Muslim, whether I'm Native American. And the Constitution in its structure is there to actually uphold that belonging. And the ACLU has a critical role in that regard. And what's happening is that container is cracked. And so we're fighting now as to who belongs. But I think the ACLU and the people who become part of the ACLU, because the ACLU is much more diverse than when I was there, and even before. I remember my interview at the ACLU, and they were saying, how will you feel being the director of an organization that's essentially all white? And they said that in an interview question. And I said, if I'm hired, it won't be all white. And I think the organization has grown. Anthony Romero and others. But trying to keep up with the times and still hold on to those core principles is tricky. But I would say one of the ways of anchoring that is to understand that the Constitution as a structure is a structure which says all people belong.
So I love that you've called the Constitution a container that can hold all of us in it. And one of the things that's interesting is that this year, the ACLU has launched a systemic equality agenda, which is really about recognizing the ways in which systemic racism and many forms of othering in the law have disadvantaged people. So I wonder, in light of all of your thinking and the work that you've done, if you have any advice for us as an ACLU about using this container well, right? And how we can make progress.
First of all, I would say the container has a crack in it. And when the container has a crack in it, it's not simply Blacks or Latinos or Native Americans or gays or straight. It's everybody's feeling beleaguered. Everybody's feeling wobbly. Everybody's feeling insecure. So it has to be, that container has to be repaired. And it probably won't be repaired just like it was. We need to move forward. So that's one, is to help people understand that we talk about a living Constitution, that there's life in the Constitution. So that's one. The other thing is we've learned some things. We used to talk about removing barriers. So it's like stop discriminating, stop stopping people from doing things. And that's good as far as it goes. But structures are not just neutral. Structures are affirmatively doing work. So how do we build structures to affirmatively promote the kind of world we want to live in? You think about an escalator. An escalator is not neutral. It's taking people from one floor to another floor. It's doing some work. So what if you're in a wheelchair? The escalator doesn't work. No one designed the escalator to prevent the person from a wheelchair. They just didn't think about them. So I would say one of the things we need to learn is how to proactively design structures and systems to produce belonging and equality. To proactively, not just remove, not just stop discrimination, proactively design structures and systems to produce the outcome we want. And that means understanding those structures and systems. Because most of the time, people talk about being colorblind, not going to happen. The unconscious mind sees race in the society. But what we really are structurally blind. We don't see the work that structures are doing. And so we think about, well, there's no one intending for that to happen. It doesn't matter. In California now, you can't build a stadium without rethinking how we do bathrooms. Because the urinals in bathrooms advantage men over women. No one thought about that. The Supreme Court of the United States just noticed that the women justices was being interrupted. Not anyone was intending to interrupt women, but systematically women were being interrupted over men. So we have to notice what systems are doing, not just what we intend for them to do, what are they actually doing? And then how do we structure them to do what we want them to do? We need to be hard on structures, holding them accountable, and more generous toward people. What we tend to be is generous toward structures and hard on people. We got it completely backwards. It's not saying we shouldn't hold people accountable, but most of the work we're doing that's keeping people from living a full life, from belonging, from thriving, are the structures in place. So let's focus in on those structures and be gracious to our people.
That is such a powerful and important observation, right? Hard on structures, generous on people. And I'm also aware that there are many people who think our structures are just fine. Let's just work within those structures. We can do that. Do you have an observation about that?
Yes, I would say two things. I would say people are increasingly thinking the structures are problematic. And one powerful example was COVID. You know, people thought the structures were fine until they were stress tested, and they broke. The healthcare system broke. The immunization system broke. The knowledge system broke. People now question science. Some people question government. And for almost 2 years, we've been in some form of lockdown. And people say, get ready for the next one. We're not ready for the next one. When Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, again, people said the levees were fine until there's a hurricane. Then they were not fine. And so I think increasingly in Minnesota, people say the bridges are fine until they fell down. So I think people are increasingly beginning to understand that maybe something's out of sort. While we need a new infrastructure bill, but the physical infrastructure is a small part. It's the social infrastructure that's really broken. Think about one of the bedrocks of our democracy, voting. Virtually every American is worried about voting. So they're saying something's wrong. So you have the conservatives and Trump people saying the voting system is broken, and therefore we need to repair it. So you have more than 26 states passing new voting rights laws to apparently fix the system that some of us say needs fixing, but not in the way you're fixing it. You're making it worse. Those of us at the ACLU and others are saying, yes, it is broken, but not the way you think it's broken. It's broken because it's still locking people out. But on that issue, the one thing that they all agree on is the voting system is not working. So, and I think you could do that with schools, you could do that with healthcare, you could do that with housing. Every major city in the United States, I met with the Secretary of HUD earlier, every major city in the United States is in a housing crisis. Every major city in the United States is dealing with homelessness. Every major city, so when people look at it, they say, this is systematic, something's not working. Now, there may be serious disagreement as to how you fix it, but I think Americans are ripe for a conversation about our system is not working. And we're moving to the future, which will stress test our system in even more important ways.
Those are great examples. And earlier, you referred to COVID and how it has been a stressor to many of our systems. And so as I reflect back on 2020 and frankly now most of 2021, we have experienced this pandemic, which has been devastating to many people and has affected all of us. We have gotten through in 2020 a deeply contested election and the aftermath of that, which we're still living with as you talk about voting. And then also in 2020, of course, there was the brutal murder of George Floyd. And while that was certainly not the first time a Black man had been killed by a police officer, there was something that was particularly galvanizing about that. And we saw that summer of protest in 2020 and a really strong intergenerational, multicultural response to that. So we're living with all of these things that are exposing our structures and where they're broken or failing. And people are thinking, all right, I see this now. What do I do? I'm not a lawyer. I don't work for the ACLU. What do I do? What can any person do to have an impact on these broken systems or on just this concept of belonging? How can I get in on the belonging game?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question as well. And I guess I would say a few things. One, we're literally, not figuratively, we're literally born attached to another human being. We would not survive without each other. You don't have to be a lawyer. The person you're born with, your mother, maybe she's a lawyer, maybe she's not. She's a human being. And so we have contact with each other. And the thing that was so hard about COVID is COVID said the way we responded to it is stay away from other human beings. We can't do that very well. We can't do that in a very healthy way. So how do we actually take chances? How do we actually do something different? How do we swim against the stream? How do we actually celebrate our deep, profound interconnectedness, not just in the United States, but in the world? The Queen of England basically said, governments are not doing enough for climate change. She's not a lawyer. She's a queen, but she's not a lawyer. The point is that these issues belong to us all, and we all have a role to play. And we can demand stuff of our government. We can demand stuff of our corporations. We can demand stuff of our military, and we can demand stuff of each other. All of us need to take responsibility to co-create a world which we all belong. We co-create it. It's not their job to do it. And it's not just my job to do it. It's our job to do it. We do it together. And doing it together is part of the beauty, because together, if we turn toward each other instead of turning on each other, we'll be fine.
That really sounds just about right. We need to acknowledge our interconnectedness, regardless of what we look like or what we do or what we live or what abilities we have. And we need to remember that it's not for somebody else to do, right? This is a project for each one of us to take on. I'm so grateful for the wisdom that you've shared with us, and so appreciative of the ways in which you have connected what for some might feel like kind of a philosophical concept, but really translated that into what each of us must do as a human, as a part of this human race, and how the ACLU can really make a difference. So thank you so very much for sitting and talking with me. It has been a total pleasure and honor. Thank you.
The pleasure and honor has been all mine. And I will say, each of us can do something, but the ACLU collectively can do more. You know, we can do stuff individually, but if we come together through institutions like the ACLU, and I know there are not many institutions like the ACLU, we can do more.
Well, we will. We will.
Thank
Working
you.
with many partners, and we will continue in this quest so that we can fix the structures and have us all truly belong and be able to be free to be who we really are.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. It was powerful to be in a conversation with John Powell, a person who I've admired for a long time. I appreciate how he tied together the concepts of othering and belonging to a concrete blueprint for how the ACLU can use its tools of constitutional advocacy to rectify systems that have treated people inequitably for many generations. How we can repair and evolve that broken container and build new systems that are transformed and that support all people. Here are a few of the ways we've been working in Washington State to advocate for belonging for so many people over the past year. You belong at the ballot box. Working with allies and impacted people, we successfully advocated for returning citizens to enjoy voting rights upon release from carceral systems. You belong to a safe community. Supporting the work of community activists and impacted families, we successfully campaigned for policy changes that transform policing and open the door to a vision for public safety that includes everyone. You belong to a people on the move. Working with impacted individuals and allies, we successfully challenged the practice of debt-based license suspensions, and we won. Now over 100,000 Washingtonians will get their licenses back and can fully participate in society regardless of their access to wealth. And we'll keep working to change policies that fund courts on the backs of poorer individuals and that make those without wealth feel like they're excluded. You belong to a community that cares for your health. we successfully passed the Protecting Pregnant Patients Act, working with allies and community members to prevent hospitals from interfering with a qualified healthcare practitioner's ability to provide care to a patient experiencing pregnancy complications whose life or health is at risk. You belong among allies who listen. We funded a community health study led by the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network and other partners to find out what immigrant communities needed regarding their access to health care under laws that currently make immigrant communities not only less safe, but less healthy. So listen, it may be long-haul work in many respects, but we will never stop working in the courts, the legislatures, in the public sphere, any and everywhere, with any and every tool at our disposal. We will never stop working for the freedoms of all of us and the belonging of all of us. Thank you so much for being in this work with us.
Oh, it's so nice that Michelle is really walking us through what the ACLU is doing and working on right now, right? The ACLU does such a good job of creating spaces for us all to belong, right? I mean, it really got me thinking on what it means to me to belong. For me, I would say, it's kind of about making sure everyone is comfortable at a party, right? There's so many things that can go into a party. And if you don't think about how to really make people feel like they belong, they'll never get to the good time, right? How about you, Jeannie? What do you think of when you think of belonging?
That's a really big question. I think what belonging means to me is that I don't get anything that isn't readily available to anyone else in my community. But the idea of community is really expansive here, I think, because we're talking about a space for belonging for everyone. So, it's weird because belonging feels like something that an individual is supposed to feel, but I think it's always supposed to be about the collective. And so that's what I'm reflecting on right now, is that when we talk about belonging, it's not just about what it means to me, it's about what it means for all of us. Well, we have someone else here who's also been thinking really deeply about belonging. She's going to offer some words of wisdom and some insight about what belonging means to her. This is Sonya Renee Taylor.
Hi, I'm Sonya Renee Taylor, founder and radical executive officer of The Body Is Not an Apology, artist, activist, and author of The Body Is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self-Love. And I'm so excited to be sharing this short message with you today about belonging and what belonging really means in this particular point of history and society that we're in right now. I think historically humans have really related to belonging as an experience of in-group, out-group. These are mine and those are not. This is who I am and this is who we are and you all are the other. And I think that, I understand the evolutionary necessity of such an experience of belonging, right? When resources were limited, when dangers in the wild were extreme, we needed to know who belonged to us and who did not. But I really believe that we're in an evolutionary moment of reimagining the idea and concept of belonging. The truth of the matter is that we're no longer limited in the same ways that we used to be. Scarcity is a figment of our imagination because the actual resources that we need when we're in balance exist. And what I hope that in this new moment in time, what we're being called to is an understanding of belonging that is fully inclusive, an understanding of belonging that has me not understand you as with me, but understand you as of me, as part of me, as part of an essential whole for whatever it is that we might hope to create in the future. That sense of belonging, that work that I see ACLU do is such an essential part of carving a new, vibrant, loving, connected humanity. A humanity that doesn't understand the other, that only understands those things that are in dissonance with us as a part of a whole that is longing to be healed. I hope that we'll continue to do the work of justice, of connection, and mostly of seeing deeply inside of ourselves how we already and always have belonged to one another, and how we more fully heal so that we can actually live into that truth. I thank you. I wish you the deepest abundance and blessing and an overflow of belonging.
Tonight the bar is done. My friends are strolling. And all the songs we sing, we will not know where to begin. I found out what it's all about. Everything's illuminated. I found out what it's all about. And it's not so complicated. You're the reason why I feel so alive. I found out what it's all about. Looking in you, looking in you. You know when all the same. With bills we cannot pay. Chase them all away. Don't know more bitterness remain. I found out what it's all about. Everything's illuminated. I found out what it's all about. And it's not so complicated. 'Cause you're the reason why I am still alive. I found out what it's all about. Looking in your incandescent eyes. Looking in your, looking in your, looking in your incandescent eyes. Looking in your, looking in your, looking in your. I found out what it's all about. Everything's illuminated. I found out what it's all about. And it's not so complicated. 'Cause you're the reason why I feel so alive. I found out what it's all about. Looking in your incandescent
Oh, I'm glad we got a little dance break with Tomo in there too.
It was so good. It was so good. And I mean, Tomo's really killing it. The energy that he's bringing into Vito's is really nice. But on top of it, I mean, the song links up so purposefully with belonging and the conversation that we're having about belonging.
Yeah, and that idea that Sonya Renee Taylor was talking about, that belonging does not mean excluding someone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's not how you define belonging.
Belonging is looking into someone's eyes and seeing yourself.
I love that
it's
so
very
much.
Crystal Gym. Oh, I loved the incandescent eyes of it because, I just thought, oh, this is just me and Jeannie's alley all day long.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So for everyone, I'm just going to very briefly explain the crystal gems here, very briefly. So this is something you can do after this wonderful event. Go find Steven Universe on one of your streaming services. They're 11-minute long cartoons. It is all about belonging. All about belonging. And that's all we're going to say about that, because we will not hijack this wonderful evening by just talking about Steven Universe. Yes, that's it.
Just a battle tactic.
Yes, that's just something to do after the event tonight. If you want to keep the good feeling going, watch Steven Universe. Okay, but we have more good feeling before Steven Universe, before anything else, because now we are going to introduce the ACLU of Washington 2021 Bill of Rights Awards. So this is the Kathleen Taylor Civil Libertarian Award. It was established in December 1977 to honor those people who have made outstanding contributions to ACLU Washington or civil liberties in Washington state. The award was renamed in 2019 to honor Kathleen Taylor, who led the ACLU of Washington from 1980 to 2019.
And this year, there are 2 groups who have won this award for their important roles in responding to the murder of George Floyd. We'll take a nice breath in gratitude for his time and his presence and all the people who contributed to his justice. And most importantly, these folks. Now, what they did was they successfully demanded change to the role of policing in our communities.
The BLM versus City of Seattle case was about police violence against protesters, and particularly protesters who were protesting about police violence. And what we saw in that case, how the police were reacting to the protesters, was very extreme.
At the time of George Floyd's death, I remember sitting and watching it on television and seeing those images over and over. That was difficult enough. But what made it even more horrific is watching the police, who are supposed to protect us, abuse their authority and their power.
They were responding with excessive amounts of pepper spray, with blast balls, which are essentially explosives that have pepper spray in them, and eventually with tear gas. And it was, in that atmosphere that David realized something needed to be done. And he reached out to Bob and talked about bringing a case. And together they reached out to the ACLU, and all of our organizations got together on a Sunday morning about 11 a.m. and decided we needed to do something, that we needed to intervene and get a court order to stop this violence against protesters. We filed our lawsuit the next day, Monday evening, late, after working around the clock with approximately 15 attorneys. And then on Tuesday, we filed a motion for a temporary restraining order, asking the court to intervene on an emergency basis to stop the violence against the protesters. David and his team at Perkins Coie and Bob at the Korematsu Center and the ACLU interviewed dozens of protesters and scrambled to bring a lawsuit in a matter of 24 hours, which is a Herculean feat. By Friday afternoon, after David did a fantastic job arguing before the district court, we had our temporary restraining order from the court saying that the police could no longer use these weapons except in very narrow circumstances against the protesters. And I was at the Black Lives Matter march that afternoon and heard them announce that this order had come down on the court. And the relief was palpable, that somebody was doing something to protect the protesters and to protect their rights to free speech, and that there was some measure of safety that came from that order.
The Korematsu Center, particularly Bob, again, being a leader in civil rights and civil liberties, he reconvened a task force, a criminal justice task force with over 100 participants that came from community legal organizations as well as law schools, and pulled together this brain trust of individuals in order to really examine the criminal justice system and the racial biases. But I'm so proud of the legal team that really owned and focused on the case and the individuals behind the case and told their stories, because someone needed to do it and they stepped up to do it.
I also want to thank the protesters and the plaintiffs in our case for putting themselves out there, for protesting police violence and systemic racism and protesting in favor of Black lives. We couldn't have done this case without you. It was so brave to be out there protesting, but also to interview with us and to submit your statements to the court and identify yourselves publicly to the police, knowing that you could potentially be targeted. And we're so grateful that you were willing to do that and to make this case possible.
Thank you so much to the ACLU of Washington and to the Korematsu Center for teaming up with us on this case. It's not every day that you get to work on a matter that affects an entire city and on a matter that relates to such one of the most important, consequential, and long overdue messages, a message for racial justice and against police brutality. And it was just so meaningful, not just to be on such a great team, but to work on such a great issue and to do so with you.
And in terms of thinking about this moment in history, what we saw was different from other times. When you look at the people who were out there, multi-generational, multicultural, multiracial. And that was also reflected in terms of the individual plaintiffs that we represented. And then also our client, Black Lives Matter, Seattle-King County. For a while, they weren't calling protests because of the pandemic, and they knew that Black people were being affected more by COVID-19. They didn't want their people out there, but they called a protest on Friday, and they were going to make it a silent protest. And it's so meaningful to be able to work with you and ACLU to get that order that made it safer for them and everybody else who was out there.
And one thing that I'd be remiss if I didn't say, job's not done. The fight goes on. And, it's, to me, I sleep better at night knowing that we have organizations like the ACLU of Washington and the Korematsu Center who are in that fight with us.
The summer of 2020 saw thousands of people across Washington stand up in the wake of the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Manny Ellis here in Washington. Protesters demanded a change to a system of policing that targets Black, Brown, and Indigenous people and too often results in violence. Those protests prompted state lawmakers to consider and pass over a dozen new laws in an attempt to change police culture and to reduce violence across the state. The most transformative of these laws would not have passed if not for the passion and dedication of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. The Washington Coalition for Police Accountability, or WCPA, which ACLU of Washington was a member of. And the heart and engine of WCPA was the families who've lost loved ones to police killing. Together, we passed 4 of WCPA's 5 priority laws. And thanks to these new laws, Washington has banned the use of chokeholds and neck restraints. We've banned military equipment like tanks and grenades and machine guns. We've restricted the use of tear gas, shooting at moving vehicles and vehicle chases. We've reduced the police's authority to use force against members of the public. And we've required police to de-escalate before using force. These laws are transformative and foundational. The families worked all session to meet with lawmakers, to make strategic policy decisions, and to show up over and over and over again to testify. And every single time they testified and shared their stories, I was moved to tears. not only at the trauma and grief that they carry with them, but also at their courage and power.
Every time the families went up to speak, they just commanded your attention. Sometimes I felt like I just had to stop everything that I was doing and just listen.
My name is Sonya Joseph. I am the mother of Giovanni Joseph McDade, who was killed by the Kent police. I urge you to take the next step and pass House Bill 1054 Police Tactics packaged into law. These policies will save lives.
I am Trishandra Pickup. Say the name Cecil Lacey Jr. Say the name Stone Child Chiefstick. Stoney is the father to 4 of my children.
My name is Fred Thomas. On behalf of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability and Next Steps Washington, I have been asked to talk about House Bill 1054 and why it needs to be passed as soon as possible. This is a good bill. Please don't let the amendments water it down.
Good morning, my name is Katrina Johnson. I reside in Tacoma. I am a member of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. I am the cousin of Charlena Lyles, killed by Seattle Police Department.
My name is Nakia Hunter. I am the sister of Carlos Hunter, a 43-year-old man killed by the Vancouver Police Department on March 7, 2019.
My name is Paul Lepite. I'm a member of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability, speaking in support of SB 5051. I am the cousin of Yosia Falitongo. Like me, Yosia was a Samoan man, and we believe that impacted communities should have a place at the table, not just to sit there, but to be engaged and to do the work and contribute.
Hi, my name is Noelle Parrish. My fiance, Joel Nelson, was killed by Thurston County Deputy Sheriff. We expect officers to follow the law and uphold the Constitution, and when they don't, they must be held accountable.
I'm Davita Briscoe. My brother, Andre Taylor, and I founded Not This Time to advocate for my brother Shay and families who have lost loved ones to police violence. Shay was killed by Seattle police officers in February of 2016.
My name is Marilyn Covarrubias. I am a member of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. My son Daniel was killed by Lakewood Police in April 2015.
My name is Danielle Bargala Sanchez. I'm a part of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability, and Renee Davis was my foster sister. This bill would have made people like my sister safe and her children, and I'm asking you today to pass it out of committee and commit to getting it to the governor's desk.
My name is Elaine Simons. It is a tragedy that I must share my personal story of the murder of my foster son, Jesse Saray, by Auburn police officer Jeff Nelson.
My name is Annalisa Thomas. To achieve remarkable change, we must first acknowledge inequities do exist, and then our lawmakers must have the courage and conviction to pass new laws that will reflect a society where every life becomes paramount and taking a life becomes uncommon.
These families and hundreds of others need to have the opportunity for justice.
This session, I have testified before this committee a number of times, and you all know that my brother Shay Taylor was killed with his hands up and he was unarmed. There were no charges in his case.
And it needs to start having some justice that has long been deferred and denied for people of color.
Their contribution, their participation, every step of the way, most definitely took these bills to the finish line. Without them, we wouldn't have had that voice in the room. So often in policymaking, impacted people are left out of the conversation. They're not even invited to the table. And the families of the Coalition for Police Accountability were there every step of the way.
And although these new laws won't bring back their loved ones, and many of these laws won't even help their loved ones' cases, the families still fought. And they fought out of a sense of love so that no other family in Washington has to suffer the way that they have. We're thrilled to be able to present this award to the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability.
They're so deserving of this award. They turned their grief and heartache into advocacy and action. And because of that, lives are being saved.
Thank you for everything you've done for all of us in Washington State. We look forward to continuing the fight next year.
Please allow us to share our insight to this work and our why we work on police reform.
So that no one ever loses their life
holding their child.
So that when in a state of confusion or mental anguish, I'm not killed for misunderstanding conflicting commands.
So welfare checks don't leave my welfare rack.
So the tools I earn a living with, create some of my best work with, won't be the justification for crashing the celebration, but only momentarily. The show must go on.
So that when I've served my sentence, done right by my life's poor choices, rehabilitated myself, and built a family, I'll be allowed life's liberties to raise and protect them.
So that fathers can keep cheering in the stands at your games instead of rallies in your honor. Your life cut short, profiled, and summed up left me no choice but to bring my mightiest voice.
So that as my parents plan my special life's moments, first job, college, children, one day, their joy isn't stolen in the night by flashing lights. As I flee in fright, trying to get to my safe place, to my family.
4 seconds between shots, 4 brothers become 3. A life yet lived as I sat on the ground, never aware of what was about to go down.
So that no one can decide my mental confusion is a dead conclusion. Cries for help leaving fatalities and torn communities.
The show for us cannot just go on. We, the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability, are a blend of families, united in the most tragic way, the loss of life by our peace officers.
We fight for equality and what that means in relation to how different the rules of engagement look for the profiled and mislabeled community members.
We stand with the ACLU and allies in this battle.
There may come times where the path gets rough, where the battles feel like rapids.
Never waver, stand tall, united and firm.
We are here in heaven, watching over you all, cheering you all on. Keep up the important work, no matter the fight. We must stand and unite.
The true justice for the loss of their lives will come with reforming the policies in Washington.
We shall not rest until we have justice for all.
Congratulations to David Perez and Robert Chang and to the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. We also just want to take a moment to take a breath after that beautiful acceptance speech from the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. And if you, like us, got emotional during that speech, started crying, we know from one of our episodes that a tactic for helping center yourself when you're crying is to have some water. So perhaps have a little water.
Yeah, I am.
While we take our deep breaths. Yeah.
All right, you guys. And on that note, I'm going to move us along to our next award. So up next, we have the William O. Douglas Award. It is a Lifetime Achievement Award honoring outstanding and sustained contributions to the cause of civil liberties and freedom. This year's winner is Fred Diamondstone.
And the Youth Activist Award is presented to a young person under age 22 whose activism exemplifies work to defend and extend liberty and justice for all. This year's winner is Ivy Pete.
I was introduced to Ivy Pete in her capacity as youth organizer with the Peace and Justice Action League of Spokane, known locally as PAJALS.
When I think of Ivy, the first experience with her that comes to mind is that one day after one of our young activist leaders workshops, she said to me that she wanted to put our heads together after the workshop. She had something she wanted to ask me for advice on. What she was bringing into that conversation was that one of her teachers had said to her class that she was going to use a rubber stamp, sort of a caricature of like an Indian maiden to celebrate the season by putting that stamp on their papers, and asked the class, is anybody offended by that? If you are, let me know. I don't think I could get away with this in a couple years, but I think now it'll be all right. So Ivy, on the break, came in to talk to her teacher, told her teacher, yeah, I am offended by that. That's not all right. And the teacher basically said she was going to use it anyway. So Ivy then immediately went to the head of that department, scheduled a meeting with that person, and then came directly from that day of school to our Young Activist Leaders program. And everything that it occurred to me to suggest to her, she had already put into motion. She had scheduled the meeting with some cool down time in between, bringing an adult ally into that meeting, already had planned, anticipated that nothing would come from that particular meeting and that she would need to go further up the chain of command, already had anticipated she would need to have a meeting with the vice principal. She had the campaign fully planned, and all I could think of to suggest was make sure you document every step along the way, and she just turned the page and showed me her 4 pages of notes.
At 17 years old, Ivy is currently a senior at Spokane's North Central High School, where she is a straight-A student. And for the past 3 years, she has been a paid youth organizer with PJALS. She was also a legislative intern at the City of Spokane, serving as an assistant to Kate Burke. She currently serves as assistant to Alex Gibalisco, manager of Equity and Inclusion Initiatives, and on the Washington State Indian Education Association. In addition to these significant roles, Ivy also served as a youth commissioner to the City of Spokane for the Chase Youth Foundation and as a council member for the Washington Legislative Youth Advisory Council. And she just completed her term as student advisor to the Spokane District 81 School Board. And she is also a track and field athlete, placing 3rd at the Washington State Track and Field Hammer Meet. For Ivy's first planned protest, at risk of her ability to compete, she placed black tape over the Indian mascot on her jersey, and many of her teammates followed suit. She also changed the mascot on the back of her letter jacket from the problematic Indian head to the unofficial mascot for many, the marmot. But Ivy didn't stop there. At 16 years of age, while a junior in high school, she conceived of, lobbied for, and helped pass 2021's HB 1356, the bill which prohibits the inappropriate use of Indigenous names, symbols, and images as public school mascots. This important accomplishment is in a direct alignment with not only with Ivy's personality, but with the force of her personal convictions and her active dedication to the hard work of proactive socio-political change. In recognition for her vision and strategy, Ivy was awarded the Indian High Schooler of the Year award by the Washington State Indian Education Association.
So seeing what she did with the mascot issue this year was not a surprise. It was just a continuation of the excellent work that she's been doing for years. She is someone who immediately can not only take action, but also can communicate with others and support others in taking action, and who serves as an inspirational leader for people across generations in our community and really across the country. She's someone that I think will go wherever she wants to go, and wherever she goes, I will be sort of applauding as she passes by. She's phenomenal, and it's a marvelous choice to honor her.
Congratulations, Ivy. We are so heartened to bear witness to your leadership, your determination, and your staunch belief in the individual's power to affect change.
Halmu, nu IVP, mi nania nu kuyui tukada, nu padu punee. I am IVP. I am a sister, a daughter, a niece, a granddaughter, a great-granddaughter. My family comes from Pyramid Lake. I am Paiute. I am a student, an organizer, and a cultural educator, and I am so honored and grateful to accept this award as the ACLU of Washington's Youth Activist of the Year. To be completely candid, I often shy away from this term, activist. Nowhere in the dictionary definition of the word activist is there even an allusion to the fundamental level of support that is derived from communities that empower the change maker to make said change. It is never just one activist. I am the product of so many mentors, teachers, allies, peers, community members, elders, and ancestors who either intentionally or unknowingly took the time to share their knowledge, experiences, and stories, and to show love and support for me and my work. Peisha'u to my community, for I am the product of a culture that emphasizes the power and strength of young leaders. The work on House Bill 1356 did not begin with me, nor did it begin last session. The mascot movement is a generational movement that I was so privileged to bring to the finish line. Activists and advocates in the 60s and 70s laid the groundwork upon which decades of strategy, lobbying, and protesting took place. In my own city of Spokane, it was activists like Charlene Teeters who trailblazed long before my place on this earth. In my role as an organizer for the Peace and Justice Action League of Spokane, I get this unique opportunity to participate in peer education and collaboration. And the first notion that I always love to share with people is that the system moves slowly, but we cannot let it dissuade us. We know that sometimes change can take months, years, decades, even generations of justice-minded people to keep pushing. So my role, and perhaps yours can be too, is to engage our young people and make sure that they do not take that foot off of the gas pedal. We all have a passion and a purpose and a topic that inspires these righteous indignations. So make space for these intentional roles and you will be amazed at the impact and success of the youth that fill them. Peisha'u, thank you so much to the ACLU of Washington for standing as an organization that already sees and honors the power of youth. It is so, so appreciated.
I actually knew about Fred and his work long before I met him, actually long before I even went to law school. Before law school, I taught GED classes at the King County Jail, and one of the biggest refrains that I heard in my time there was about how much the Hammer lawsuit improved the quality of life for people who were incarcerated at the King County Jail.
Fred has worked for 40 years for the rights of prisoners as an ACLU cooperating attorney, starting in the late 70s and early 1980s. Also, starting in 1989, working on the King County Jail case, which is still going on, and later in the Pierce County Jail case, working on medical care, security, and safety for prisoners.
Fred Diamondstone, you deserve this award. I had a chance to work with Fred on the Herrera case in Pierce County. I was so excited when I heard that you're going to get the William O. Douglas Award. This is just, it was made for you, for the commitment that you've made for the ACLU and the difference you've made in other people's lives.
I had the opportunity to work with Fred as a staff attorney for the ACLU. And we had the opportunity to actually continue working and enforcing the Hammer lawsuit. So the Hammer lawsuit was a challenge that Fred brought to really terrible conditions that were inside of the King County Correctional Facility. There was consistent overcrowding, sanitary issues, lack of access to medical care and mental health care, really, really dire living situations for those who were incarcerated in that facility. Through his hard work, his diligence,
his persistence, his doggedness, the way he worked on the details, nobody took more care with what was happening with prisoners.
Fred was able to get the county to enter into a settlement agreement that would require certain types of reporting and that certain standards be met for as long as the King County Correctional Facility, that building, was used as a jail.
His love of civil liberties, his love of making sure that we are protecting the rights of others, especially people who cannot speak for themselves. I mean, that's what I think always the highest calling for any lawyer is giving voice to those who have lost their voices, those who have lost hope. And Fred, you've done that. You've done that throughout your life, your career.
You know, as of a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, Fred is still continuing to do work to ensure that the King County Jail, as long as we are incarcerating people, which we really need to rethink how we approach that as a society, but if we are going to incarcerate access to the care and services that they need, and Fred's work really has been critical in moving that forward.
So the jail is better. It's not great, obviously not a great place to be. There are still problems. But Fred, because of your work, your commitment, your passion, your devotion, it is better for the inmates who are in there now. Our society is better because of what you've done, Fred. Thank you on behalf of all of us. You are what every lawyer should be.
Thank you for this wonderful honor. I appreciate all the support that has enabled me to do the work that this William O. Douglas Award recognizes. As I said to Michelle Storms when she first contacted me about this, it truly takes a village. And that village is the community of civil rights lawyers and legal services lawyers who do this type of work. I also treasure the support that I've had from my wife, Mary Monsheen, that has enabled me to do this work through the years. Some of the lawyers who I specifically want to thank, who've worked with me on these cases as well as some other cases, include John Midgley, Sal Mangia, Mike Withy, LaRon Baker, Nancy Horgan, and John Purbaugh. David Fati is another one who I certainly need to include. Countless others have been resources and inspirations. Fighting for basic safety for people who are locked up, for medical care that they cannot otherwise get, assuring that they have access to the courts, and basic safety while they are incarcerated is important, necessary work, but it is not sufficient work. We also need to combat the racial injustice that plagues our criminal justice system. From 1971 until the early 1990s, Washington's prison population increased fivefold. From the early 1990s until now, the population increased 5,000 from 15,000 to 20,000 today. And that's just the state prisons, that's not the local jails. Prison population has expanded far beyond the population increase in the state of Washington. Michelle Alexander's book traces how the war on drugs is really a cover for the racial injustice that we have that is rife in our system. Mass incarceration continues to outpace the population growth here in Washington state and indeed across the country. We have much work to do. To younger lawyers, I say fight for justice. Civil rights work should be part of your practice. It may not pay all of the bills, but when you do good work, other work will follow. Clients and income will follow. And reach out for help. I sure as hell have. And that is so important that we are there to support one another. And finally, feel free to think outside of the box. The King County jail conditions case came to me from the most unlikely source. A young lawyer, Brian Youngberg, had reached out to the lawyer for the correctional staff after Brian's client, Cal Hammer, was cold-cocked and suffered a broken jaw in the jail. I never would have done that. But when the two of them came to me, I realized we've got something important here. We got the ACLU involved, we worked with the public defender's office, and we were able to successfully battle for medical care, for population reduction, and a host of other changes here in King County. More than 30 years later, the successes of that case are part of an enduring settlement that requires the county to have accredited medical care and a host of other changes from the conditions that existed more than 30 years ago. I want to thank the ACLU for this wonderful honor for the work that this William O. Douglas Award recognizes. Thank you.
Oh, congratulations, Fred and Ivy. You guys really make us, excited for the future. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And you absolutely belong within these groups that you are now a part of, these big awards.
Yeah. And congratulations to all the award winners tonight. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, ACLU of Washington, for including us in this wonderful evening. Thank you, everyone who's watching tonight, for hanging out with us. It's been a blast.
And we'd like to thank the land that we're on, the folks that are, lend it to us. And we'd like to thank you guys for, your energy and your bingo cards throughout the night. And we're really grateful for the fact that we've all had to have this experience together. And there's another one coming.
Woohoo! Yep.
It's the Black Tones.
Yay!
That's what it is. So they're at Vito's. So we have another performance from the Black Tones at Vito's. It's going to be, something to stay up for. So don't miss it, you guys. Enjoy.
Yep. Good night.
Good night.
Play us out, Black Tones.